Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, brought to you by BuckeyeHuddle.com. I am Marc Givler. Got Kevin Noon here with me today. Commitment edition. It's a commitment podcast. Ohio State has landed top 100 linebacker Tarvos TJ Alford out of Vero Beach, Florida. Longtime priority target for James Laurinaitis and the defensive staff. We knew this was coming because he set the date, and we were kind of on top of this. So this isn't an emergency surprise, but I think everyone was hoping this would be happening today. Everyone that's watching and listening, I'm sure, was keeping an eye on things today to make sure this went through for the Buckeyes, but it did. Alford is a Buckeye, so another quality linebacker in the class. Really big defensive target. This is a guy they've prioritized for a very long time, Kevin.
Yeah, one Alford leaves the program, and Ohio State gets the commitment of another Alford. No relation, but out of Vero Beach, which is the Atlantic side of the state of Florida, 6'2", 210 is what he's listed at in the database. Those things never really get updated, but this is a kid that James Laurinaitis really did a number with, and when James Laurinaitis was kind of in that interim role, when Ohio State hadn't decided the direction it was going to go, it was very important for Ohio State to keep that continuity there to land Alford. He had he had all the main offers out there. And when you look at Ohio State's linebacker recruiting, it's not that Ohio State hasn't been able to go out and get some guys, but some of the guys they've gotten are learning the position. And that's not going to be the case with TJ. TJ is a linebacker. That is what he's done. And I think it's so important for Ohio State moving forward to be able to have some of these guys, because we will see what ends up becoming of Garrett Stover or somebody like that. But when you look at TJ Alford, he is the type of linebacker that you want to have. I mean, he's not a three position linebacker. He's not going to be your Mike by any stretch, in my opinion. But I think he's a guy that can run and run and run and run.
Yeah, I think he fits in a couple ways. Obviously, he fits well with Eli Lee, who is going to be a Mike. But he also fits well with kind of the modern defense. He's a 3-down linebacker. He's not a guy you have to take off the field in pass situations. So this is just a nice fit. And as you'll see as we run the tape, he's an excellent blitzer. He can shoot gaps, but his greatest asset is his athleticism and his ability to fly to the football. So you can see him dropping into coverage there, getting great depth, but then he's also athletic enough to come up and lay a big hit on the quarterback there. And just, again, his ability to play out in space, to tackle in space, that is a skill that is in such high demand right now across the sport of football. And he absolutely brings that to the table. We've seen him at a couple camp settings over the years, and have always been super impressed with him in those settings. And then you throw on the tape and you see that, yeah, not only can he kind of run around at the camp setting, but he's also a very physical player, plays with really good instincts and plays fast. So I think it's a tremendous pickup. This was a guy who's basically at the top of their linebacker board over the past year. So anytime you can get a player who, again, is at the top of your wish list at a certain position, it's huge. It's another in the state of Florida. They're doing so well in Florida lately. This is another guy that can kind of help them as they move forward and try and land that next wave. And ironically, now he's teammates with Champ Smith, one of their top 2026 offensive line targets. So now maybe he'll get to work on that, because Champ Smith's a guy who's already been up to Ohio State multiple times and has multiple visits set to Ohio State here the rest of the calendar year. So that's a guy I think they have a chance at. And now you've got Alford in there, kind of pounding the table for the Buckeyes. So there's a lot to be excited about, I think, with this commitment.
Yeah, and something for the people who are watching along on YouTube over at Buckeye Huddle, or youtube.com/Buckeye Huddles, this is his sophomore tape. This isn't even his junior tape. His junior tape isn't on Huddle. So we're looking at a year ago. And, for somebody already to have some of these instincts, I mean, yes, the game has to slow down a little bit for you to be able to put yourself in the right position. But additionally, talent is talent. And, this kid has got plenty of talent, and it does put Ohio State in a good position with Champ Smith. I think this is an important get, and he does match up very well with Eli Lee, the in-state linebacker from for Ohio State in this class, because I think linebacker is going to be an important position in terms of recruiting. When you look at where things are, I mean, obviously coming out of this past season, they lose Tommy and they lose Steele. Cody's getting toward the end of his line. I mean, blink and all of a sudden you realize that CJ Hicks has been in Columbus for more than a minute. I mean, you've got to keep replenishing the numbers. And while Ohio State did go out and get a couple of linebackers, Peyton Pierce most recently in the previous class, I think that TJ Alford is this is a big get. This there are times where it's like Ohio State gets somebody, it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. But this is one that if Ohio State lands this guy in December, right before National Signing Day, multiple, every website is running multiple stories on it, everything else. Sometimes timing just may diminish how pivotal and important a commitment is.
Yeah, I mean, this, again, top of the board guy. They are on the precipice here, I think, of going on a run. I know it's been a little quiet, maybe the last 2 months-ish, but they're on the precipice of another big run here as we head into the middle of spring and into the June official visits. So this is a really nice way to maybe kickstart another run of recruiting success for the Buckeyes. Again, I look at their linebacker room. It's inexperienced, but it's old. Cody Simon's a senior. Sonny Styles is a junior, believe it or not. He's only like 19 years old still, but he's a junior. CJ Hicks is a junior. Gabe Powers is a junior, third-year player. Like, this is not a young linebacker room. And so this is an important position group for the Buckeyes in this class. Is it as important as maybe, defensive end? Probably not, but it's one of the more important positions in this class. Is kind of a theme on defense, as they're about to turn a lot of this defense over, is kind of replenishing all the position groups. But so now the question is kind of, okay, how many would they take? My answer is 4. If it's the right 4, could it end up being 3? I think that's very possible. They're going to take some swings nationally here. A guy like Elijah Barnes. They're going to continue to recruit Elijah Melendez, who's committed to Miami. There's a couple of guys out in California there, Madden Friamo and Nasir Wyatt, who's kind of a hybrid. So they're going to take some big swings. But I think they would push this to 4 if they knew they could get a couple of these other guys to go with the 2 they already have.
Yeah, it comes down to numbers, and you probably have 4 coaches that think that they're going to get one more player than they probably actually are, only that they're actually going to get. And it becomes a lot of pounding on the table and, look, I've got this need and everything else. But to your point, it is an old linebacker room. And yeah, they do have a couple young guys in there from the last couple of classes, but the vast majority of the room are elder statesmen. So I think it's going to be incumbent upon James Laurinaitis and Jim Knowles to a lesser extent, even if Jim Knowles ends up being a bit of an arbiter, ultimately reporting to Ryan Day as the head coach of where this needs to go. But I don't see Ohio State going to 4 just to fill count, and I don't think anybody is insinuating that. I think that they've got to get to 3. If you want to hit your number, you've got to get to 3. I think if it's the right 4, you go to 4, and if they get to 4, that means they've done something right, because that means some of these hacks that they're out there taking, swinging away, they're going to connect and put a couple of them over the fence if they're going to get to that number.
Yeah, I think again, like if Nasir Wyatt and Elijah Barnes called up and said, "Hey, we're coming," I don't think they're kicking the second guy out. Like whoever's second of those 2, I don't think that's happening. So, but yes, it could be a challenge to get to that number. So I think 3 is the kind of quota number that they're looking at. And then it's a matter of, can you get a 4th guy? I don't consider Justin Hill a linebacker. I know he's being recruited by Laurinaitis and he's being recruited for like the jack position. I consider him like an edge. He's not really in my calculus here. So if anyone's watching this, like, what about Justin Hill? I think they're getting Justin Hill. I view him as more of a pass rushing, either a defensive end or a kind of stand up outside linebacker than a traditional linebacker. So, it's a great start to this defensive class right now. They've got all these guys in the secondary now. They've got a couple good linebackers. Kevin, it's going to come back to this again. I'm sure someone's going to comment on it. I bet someone's in fact already commented on this before I've even said this in the video already. And someone's going to, get back to me when it's a defensive lineman or a defensive end. May not be too far away either. Look, things are trending in a great direction. Justin Hill, London Merritt, Marion Dye. There's a lot of options there at defensive line for the Buckeyes. And, maybe how important could Alford be? And, he's a pretty active guy on Twitter. I know he talks to a lot of recruits. Maybe he starts, working some of these defensive linemen, because there's a very much a symbiotic relationship there with defensive line and linebackers. They're cleaning up behind you. If you're a defensive lineman, if you're a linebacker, you want clean lanes. So, maybe Alford can start pitching in on that front too. He's a pretty well-liked guy around the Ohio State recruiting circle. So I think this will be a nice pickup for them on that front too.
Yeah, the goalposts have moved, because it used to be, Ohio State's recruiting class is only built on the sum of the wide receivers. That's where all the numbers are. That's where all the points, all the stars come from. It's what's there. Well, now Ohio State is way ahead of the game on the defensive side of the ball. But yes, people are going to be like, I care about the trenches. I care about edge. They missed their number badly 2 years. And you're valid. That's valid. I mean, I'm not going to hate against a valid point. They have missed their numbers. That is a fact. That is not opinion. That is not conjecture. That is fact. So, I think that Tarvos Alford will be important, because it's another voice in Florida amongst a lot of the kids down there. So you have that going. I mean, Ohio State obviously does well with South Florida Express kids. They kind of operate kind of on their own time and everything else. So I don't know if Alford is necessarily going to go in and change anything. And when you're looking at 7 on, it's offense. I know that you have to play on both sides of the ball, but it's more of an offensive endeavor. But I do think he'll be able to step in and be a recruiter. Now, does this mean that he's going to unseat Devin Sanchez's parents of being recruiters? No. There's not an offer that doesn't go out where I don't see one or both say, hey, the choice to make. But I think that Tarvos Alford will do a great job of being an ambassador for Ohio State in a lot of regards. And, we know what we see on Twitter or what we might see on Instagram, but we're not privy to the text message threads. And we've done this long enough to know, there's more than one there's probably a defensive one, an offensive one, a full one, people who have been connected. So you got to figure he's going to do a good job of getting in the ear of a lot of people. And the reality is if a kid from Vero Beach, Florida is willing to pass up all of these SEC schools and everything else that's regional to go to Ohio State, and he is, this high 4-star, somebody who can maybe even climb higher with a strong senior season. If I'm a player who's considering Ohio State, I'm going to at least ask him, why did you pick Ohio State? And then I'm going to reflect upon it. So, maybe I'm putting too much thought into it, but these kids are getting more and more savvy with every cycle, and they're using every bit of information they can get.
And yes, shout out to the Sanchez family. I'm sure they're watching this, so we'll say hello. They keep track of this stuff better than I do, I think, some days. It's a really good start. Again, they've got this core. That's what they've lacked, I think, the last few cycles, is getting that core of defensive guys in the class early to kind of help you, finish things out. It's all well and good to have like Tavian St. Clair out there as a quarterback, but ultimately, if you're a defensive lineman, if you're a linebacker, if you're a defensive back, you're going to be going against him in practice. You're not going to be playing alongside him. So it's nice to have a core on defense that can kind of carry the weight. So it's not just all on like someone like Tavian St. Clair or, trying to recruit defensive guys too. So I think this will be good. Look, Florida State, Miami, Florida, they're not going to give up. Like Florida was the school early that could have caused some problems here for Ohio State. They've obviously had their share of issues on the field to the point that I think this kind of became a very heavy Ohio State lean fairly early in the process. So keep an eye on Florida, just maybe how things go there in the fall. Certainly Florida State's going to try and continue to sell, what they're building there. And so I don't suspect that all the Florida schools are going to lay down their arms, but I feel good about this one sticking. He's been up so many times. He's so close with James Laurinaitis. He's just really kind of fallen in love with the Ohio State program. And this one feels pretty solid to me. And like you mentioned to me a few weeks ago, he said, if I go to Ohio State, I would want James Laurinaitis to be there. And, since those, those comments were made right around the time Laurinaitis was announced as full-time linebackers coach. So he sticks with his decision date and visits a week before and then commits. I mean, you never want to say 100% because we know how this stuff goes, but doesn't this feel like maybe a more solid one than maybe most early Florida commitments?
It does, but I think we felt pretty solid about Jevin Boggs too, and then he decommits out of Cocoa a little further north up of I-95. Let's spit that one out. But I have not gotten the impression that TJ is going to be somebody that is going to have an eye looking elsewhere. But you will have to go through visits. I mean, these players are going to they see movement all the time. He can't get up to Columbus every week, and you can't ask him to come up to Columbus every week. So do you know where your commits are? Well, you're going to have to ride through this. And we know this. I mean, whether or not you're from Vero Beach or from Vandalia, Ohio, you've got to recruit somebody every single day, because if you're not, somebody else is. So, no, he does not strike me as somebody who is just, this is a placeholder to see, if Florida doesn't get any better, then, well, at least I've got Ohio State. I think Ohio State certainly, at this point, he just committed to Ohio State. His commitment's never going to be any stronger than it is right this minute. But no, I don't see this one going away.
All right, so great news for Ohio State. Big-time linebacker, TJ Alford, Vero Beach, Florida, a guy we've talked about a lot on the site over the last year and a half, has committed to Ohio State. It's in the bag. Big pickup on the defensive side of the ball. We will have more massive recruiting weekend here this weekend. So we're going to have all sorts of updates on BuckeyeHuddle.com throughout the weekend and into the week. Monster list of visitors. I would argue it's going to be a better visitor list than the spring. I mean, I would say it's definitely a better list than the spring game, even though the spring game's got some good players too. So this is kind of their big weekend. So stay locked in on BuckeyeHuddle.com. We'll throw out a few small updates here on YouTube as well. But as always, you always get our good stuff at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So be sure to check us out there. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. But I appreciate everyone watching and listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.